MagMongoSlade in the building to talk about Monday Night Raw from September the 4th. A waste of our Labor Day. I can tell you that much, because Raw, nothing happened. As usual on Monday Night Raw, nothing happened. It's dry as toast. Cannot stand this show sometimes. Alright, let's talk about this thing real quick before we, I'm going to try not to keep you guys all day. Let's talk about this CM Punk nonsense. So apparently there was a story that came out of Fightful that CM Punk wanted to join the WWE in 2022. So it says, quote, those close to Punk claim that around December 2022, Punk was open to leaving AEW and returning to WWE. Fightful have heard that Punk wanted to appear at the 2023 Royal Rumble, but there is no indication that WWE wanted him to return, or that AEW would have released him. One of the ideas that Punk reportedly had was that he would return at the Rumble and work a match at WrestleMania against the person who would have eliminated him. That would have been Kevin Owens. Oh boy. They make up so many CM Punk stories now. It won't be long before he done walked on the moon. Before CM Punk then got into a fight with aliens on Venus or some other nonsense. I don't believe this at all. I have zero faith in this story. I don't care if you think it's Sean Ross Sapp. I believe it because it's Sean Ross Sapp. It's Fightful. Come on, man. These guys are now all of a sudden putting out all these stories that he was... Look, again, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to entertain every stupid idea. The idea that CM Punk may have disrespected William Regal, okay, maybe that's believable. But I don't believe at all that he just wanted to up and quit and be working at WrestleMania without any sort of legal shenanigans. What was... This guy knows the law. It would definitely have been legal shenanigans. So I don't buy that at all. But it's out there. So I just wanted to talk about it. I don't believe it. And CM Punk versus Kevin Owens, it probably would have been big to the indie audience, but to a guy like me, who's not a fan of either one of those guys, it would have been miserable. I'm probably more of a Punk fan than Kevin Owens, because I used to actually be a Punk fan. But Kevin Owens, oh my God, heavens to Betsy. Heavens to Betsy. All right, so let's get this Raw started, because I don't want to be here all night. All right, so Jey Uso, super over, comes down the stairs through the crowd, says he was only gone for 2 or 3 weeks, but it felt longer. He hit a breaking point when his fighting with his family on SmackDown, and thankfully Cody called him. And he might have some enemies backstage, but they know where to find him. Sami Zayn came out there, wanted to be the first person to say he's happy that Jey is there. Jey broke free. He became main event Jey Uso. And he doesn't expect them to be the best friends right now, but over time, they will regain their trust from one another. And then said that he's proud of Jey. He reached out his hand and Jey didn't immediately shake it. Instead, Jey said that wasn't very Uso of me. And they ended up hugging. So Jey Uso made his, he's back to being friends with Sami Zayn, at least friendly with Sami Zayn. At that point, Drew McIntyre's music starts to play. He starts to march to the ring. Now, this is something that blew my mind. Is Jey Uso is standing there, and Drew McIntyre is towering over Jey Uso. I mean, he looks like a giant compared to Jey Uso. And I'm thinking, like, holy moly, this guy's huge. This guy's massive. Like, I told you guys, like, when I went to SummerSlam, there was very few guys you could see from where I'm sitting, and Drew McIntyre was one of those guys. He's a big dude. Big dude. And he's involved with this absolute retarded stuff. This stuff is absolute short bus stuff. He's wrestling the Viking Raiders. Again, I don't know who has a hard-on for the Viking Raiders and who loves them so very much, and WWE creative, but I hope they get fired. I wish you nothing but stomach aches. Whoever is the person continuously putting the Viking Raiders on TV every week. I hope that some shit like some Twilight Zone shit happens. That you go in the bathroom with vicious diarrhea and can't find toilet paper. Why do you keep putting these fucking guys on the show? Anyway, the Viking Raiders actually win this tornado tag team match because Kofi Kingston came down to the ringside and ended up kicking Matt Riddle in the head by mistake. And he was like, "Oh no, me brother, I kick him in the head." No, that's not Jamaican at all. Sorry. Anyway, Ragnarok through a table. Matt Riddle loses. Drew McIntyre is pissed. He goes backstage and he's barking at various guys looking for Kofi Kingston, and he ends up bumping into Kofi. They argue about, Drew McIntyre hitting Woods in the heads with a chair and the kick to the head, and Drew's very suspicious about what's going on. He doesn't like that. He also doesn't like that Jey Uso is hanging around, and he says that if anything bad happens, he's going to keep his eye on Jey Uso, and if something happens, he's going to take it out on the person who brought him there, Cody Rhodes. So he's not just going to kick the shit out of Jey Uso. He's also going to kick the shit out of Cody for bringing Jey to Raw. Okay. So they're at least telling you which direction they're going in. Because, for starters, I love that people are not over what Jey Uso has done to them. He's got a redemption arc that he's got to go through now. There's all these people backstage who, he kicked their asses. He cost them championships. He injured some of these guys during the Bloodline storyline, so they haven't forgotten. This is a good story. So Drew McIntyre being number one on that list, considering Clash at the Castle, fucked him tremendously, even though it wasn't Jey. It was Solo. Not the point, though, because he was fighting these guys all the way up to that point. So we get it. And also now Jey is flying solo. He doesn't have the support of his family anymore, and people might feel like they want to test him. So this is good. This is working out very well. Later, Jey Uso gets a pep talk from the most unlikely of sources, Dominic Mysterio. Because Dominic Mysterio comes over to Jey Uso and says that he understands Jey because he also has a Hall of Fame father and he comes up from a screwed up family. And if Jey Uso, wants to join Judgment Day, they will welcome him with open arms. And he gives him this soft speech. Like, I understand you, Essay. I get it. Nobody else understands, but I get it. And I'm like, oh my God. They throwing Jey Uso to the Judgment Day wolf already. I'm guessing, well, they need to have people to fight these guys at Survivor Series or whatever, so okay. But not thrilled about that. But the Jey Uso angle is that he's got all these enemies, and he's got these demons and these shadows that he's got to deal with, and I'm okay with that. That's good. Shinsuke Nakamura has another video. Here he claims that he broke Seth Rollins the way Seth broke the code that they share, but he might not have won the match. But he was the last man standing. He was the one who walked out of Payback, and he will become the World Heavyweight Champion. Earlier in the night, Seth Rollins popped up on the screen. Adam Pearce said that he's not medically cleared to be there. He's not medically cleared to wrestle. But Seth Rollins wants to be there anyway because he's Seth freaking Rollins, and it's time to have fun. He interrupted Ricochet, who was talking to Adam Pearce. Ricochet was looking for the next opportunity because he was like, hey, I haven't been on this show since SummerSlam. But he didn't say it that way. I said it that way because that's true. It's a fact. Ricochet goes over to Seth Rollins and tells him, you don't have to carry the load. You don't have to do it all by yourself, man. There's people here to help you. And Rollins is like, I'm okay. I'm fine. I promise. And then he goes out there, talked about getting pushed out of the match after the show in a wheelchair by his wife. That doesn't sit well with him, so he wants to have a match with Shinsuke Nakamura right now, a title match. He calls Shinsuke out. Shinsuke comes out but doesn't come to the ring. When Rollins offers him the title match, Nakamura says no. They go back and forth on this when Nakamura is speaking Japanese. Then Rollins says, that doesn't work for me, brother. He takes off his jacket, goes and they fight in the aisleway. At this point, they're separated by Adam Pearce and the security team. Ricochet ends up in this somehow. He snuck in the back door to relevance. And him and Nakamura start to fight. Backstage, Adam Pearce is arguing with Seth freaking Rollins. about, him saying that Rollins is going too hard. Rollins is doing too much. You got to slow down, Seth. You got to burn out. You got to relax. And Seth Rollins like, I don't want to relax. I want to be the champion of the world. And he storms off for something. Some other shit. Meanwhile, in the ring, Shinsuke Nakamura and Ricochet have a match that ends in disqualification when Shinsuke Nakamura hits Ricochet with a chair. The match itself was fine. Really showcased Ricochet. He does some very athletic things. These guys have had some really good matches in the past. This one was not terrible, but it ends in disqualification. And it was probably too long to end in disqualification, if we're being honest. But they didn't want to kill Ricochet, and they didn't want Nakamura to lose, so this was the best option that they had. So Nakamura was about to do the Kinshasa, with a chair wrapped around Ricochet's head when Seth Rollins came out there and helped him. Security very quickly followed, pulled these two guys apart. Seth Rollins was throwing around security guys, leaped over the top rope onto Nakamura, and this was very interesting. Nakamura then ran Seth Rollins into the stairs and started to stomp him. Meanwhile, Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest are watching very closely as they consider whether to cash in the Money in the Bank right now, and they choose not to. Later on the social media, to quote Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Nakamura says he didn't accept Rollins' challenge because he decides when and where the rematch will be and what kind of and how and all this stuff. So he wants it on his own terms. Fine. This was okay. Nakamura, going right back to Nakamura because, well, Rollins may have won the match, but he couldn't walk out under his own power. I don't think that's a good enough reason to give a guy a rematch, but okie dokie, whatever. I think we're just biding our time here with this Nakamura thing. I don't think it's going anywhere really. Zoe Stark is backstage. She's talking about how she respects Trish Stratus, but nobody pushes her around. So Shayna Baszler got in her face and said, "Hey, I was waiting for you to get rid of that dead weight. Too bad you couldn't get rid of it when we had our match, which seems like 3 months ago. It was a long time ago. I don't remember it. Most people didn't remember it either." So Zoe Stark was like, how about we have that match right now? We see who the baddest is. So then they set up this match in which Shayna Baszler had run Ronda Rousey out. And apparently Zoe Stark has run out Trish Stratus. So Trish Stratus will not be returning, apparently. That sucks, because I would rather have Trish Stratus than Zoe Stark. But this set up the match, Zoe Stark versus Shayna Baszler. The match was fine. Actually, a solid match. Solid performance from Zoe Stark, usually, because who did all the wrestling in this match? Shayna Baszler was just basically a body that she fell onto several times. Difficult to set up who was the babyface and who was the heel in this scenario, considering the crowd barely likes either one of them. But the match ends with the referee stoppage after Zoe Stark had been in the Karafuda clutch what felt like forever. The match was longer than it probably should have been, but they have reiterated once more that Shayna Baszler is the baddest woman in WWE, which is, I guess, her new thing. After the match, they both talk about how they're better than their previous opponents, that Zoe Stark is better than Ronda Rousey, while Shayna Baszler is better than Trish Stratus, and then they fist bump. Because it was a babyface versus babyface match, apparently. Really, the Zoe Stark babyface turn is off to a rousing start. I mean, it's off to a huge start. She loses her very first match. Okay, I don't know what to tell you. I can't tell you much more than what's going on here. Now we got to get into the muck and mire of Judgment Day. Let's skip straight to the point. Finn Balor wants J.D. McDonagh in the Judgment Day. J.D. McDonagh is the reason why they're the tag team champions. Finn Balor wants to give him a lot of credit. J.D. McDonagh ends up interrupting Damian Priest and then gave him the purple Money in the Bank briefcase, which impressed Damian Priest and impressed all the members of Judgment Day. And they were like, hey, okay, well, this guy maybe not so bad. He was willing to help us. He put his life on the line for us. Hey, okay, he might be one of us. At this point, Finn Balor also mentioned that he's Grand Slam Finn, which rules. That was very good. We also got the first nod of the Bloodline Judgment Day issue, or the Jey Uso Judgment Day issue, with Rhea Ripley saying that the bloodline is dead, the bloodline has fallen, Judgment Day is the most dominant faction. So at this point, JD McDonagh is out there. Sami Zayn pops up. Sami Zayn called them all turds and said they stole all of their championships and they robbed him out of his tag team title. And he owes them all a beating, but he wants to fight Dominic Mysterio, who's the biggest turd of them all. Dominic was like, and JD McDonagh ends up accepting the match on Dominic's behalf, because why not? Backstage, Finn Balor formally pitches the idea of JD McDonagh being in Judgment Day. Dominic Mysterio doesn't really care. He doesn't really give a shit, really. He only cares about me. Damian Priest wants JD McDonagh to prove himself, and Rhea Ripley just wants to see how he performs in this match against Sami Zayn. So this match is essentially a tryout match, and JD McDonagh did not look good. He did not look good. He apparently he might be suffering some injuries or something, because he looked like shit in this match. It just it didn't come over very well. McDonagh ends up winning with a roll-up, which is the cheapest way to win possible, because Dominic Mysterio came out there and, of course, distracted him. And there was a lot of distractions, and that's really what... It's a Judgment Day match, for Christ's sake. Judgment Day and Bloodline are doing the exact same thing. Big brother, little brother, same DNA. At one point after the match, Sami Zayn continued to kick the shit out of Dominic Mysterio, while JD McDonagh just stood there and watched. He didn't do anything. Dominic actually waited for him to come and help him, but JD still didn't do it. Eventually, JD McDonagh did come down there and help Dominic. Dominic then turned around and left JD McDonagh, who got beat up in the middle of the ring and hit with a haluva kick. So JD McDonagh didn't do a good job of being a team player when he hesitated to come and help Dominic, which he eventually did do, but he didn't do it soon enough, and then Dominic basically walked off on him. Despite this, however, Finn Balor was impressed that JD McDonagh actually won the match, and this led to the Jey Uso Dominic Mysterio conversation that I mentioned earlier. Not gonna lie to you, JD McDonagh being a member of Judgment Day, it feels like he's already on the team. Finn Balor being one of the guys who is pitching for him to be there, fine, makes sense. Can't complain about that. Everybody else being sort of ambivalent or actually actively against it, very interesting stuff there. They're building a team. So they got to do it. They got to do their thing. So I guess we're just gonna play the wait and see game. Raquel Rodriguez has set up herself a rematch with Rhea Ripley. By the way, she had talked to Adam Pearce, and then Chelsea Green came in, and Chelsea Green was told that Piper Niven is not medically cleared to participate in tonight's Raw, and they started discussing the curse of the women's tag team titles, to which Chelsea Green doesn't believe that there is a curse, while Adam Pearce didn't mention a curse at all. It was just Chelsea Green being Chelsea Green. Chelsea Green, because she's very arrogant, says that she shouldn't have to wait in line behind Amazons like Raquel Rodriguez. She then made jokes about Raquel losing. Of course, Raquel was standing right there and heard it all. This led to Adam Pearce making news to Russell and Raquel Rodriguez clotheslining Chelsea Green, not only out of her boots, but out of her birthday suit. I mean, she clotheslined that girl. She folded like a lawn chair. Simple match. Chelsea Green versus Raquel Rodriguez, Tahana Bomb. Raquel Rodriguez wins. Following the match, Raquel Rodriguez got her rematch, but furthermore, got Dominic Mysterio banned from ringside. So Dominic Mysterio will not be able to help Rhea next week when she has her rematch. That has nothing to do with the other members of Judgment Day. There's 4 members of Judgment Day. And you can count JD McDonagh as 5. All right? Somebody's going to help Rhea. And you might even have this match where they don't need it. But if you're going to do this match just 2 weeks after Payback, you're probably just better off doing this match on TV and not doing it at Payback at all. Could have made that show shorter. The Miz lost his damn mind by arguing with an invisible John Cena. The Miz comes out there complaining that he was robbed at Payback and that John Cena had been conspiring with LA Knight. So he called out John Cena. So the cameraman goes through the motions. Everywhere that John Cena would have normally went, he went, including running to the ring. And then the Miz had John Cena, who is invisible at this point, have a seat. And they start to argue. And Miz says that not only he can see John Cena, he can see through John Cena. 18 years of experience, he knows John Cena. He knows that John Cena was paid and was conspiring with LA Knight. And he's yelling at an empty chair. At this point, the Miz proved his point that LA Knight is a phony who conspired with John Cena and cheated. Wants a rematch with no special guest referees and no outside interference. And then he got into a fight with the invisible John Cena, in which he won the fight, obviously, with the skull crushing finale. So not only did he argue with an invisible man, he beat up an invisible man, which makes him number one qualified to be the PWG World Heavyweight Champion or whatever the fuck. Whatever indie show is probably thrilled at the invisible hand grenade. Now we have an invisible argument between the Miz and an empty chair. This was ridiculous. And I think it made Miz look ridiculous. The Miz being serious, the Miz already ridiculous. I don't know what I'm saying. But the Miz being serious about LA Knight and feeling that LA Knight and John Cena conspired against him, that's perfectly fine. It's fine for him to think that. But why do you have to argue with an empty chair? Why couldn't he just make that argument? Why couldn't he talk to Adam Pearce? Why do you have to talk to nothing? And people, of course, the wrestling is silly crowd, they're loving this stuff because it's validating their nonsense, their invisible hand grenades and their invisible man putting people through tables and all this kind of shit. And I wish they had not done this. Whoever idea this was, I really hope you get a really bad paper cut, brother. I mean, really, like a really bad paper cut. I hope it's like not deep enough where you bleed, but that shit where it pierces the skin and the skin's just flapping. I hope that's the case. Look, we get it. John Cena, you can't see me, so he has to be invisible. Nonsense. Don't validate indie bullshit. Don't do that. And plus, The Miz was doing so good in this storyline, then you bring him all the way back with this horse shit, with him arguing with an empty chair. It's ridiculous. I mean, come on, man. Main event time, Intercontinental Championship. Gunther defeats Chad Gable. Throughout the night, they were showing just pictures of Intercontinental champions. You know, they didn't get in any way. They didn't go in order. So it was just, we're celebrating the Intercontinental title. And now here's 4 random Intercontinental champions. They don't have anything to do with each other. And here's 4 more and 4 more and 4 more. Instead of telling the history of the title, you know, instead of talking about all the different, you know, iterations of the title and all this kind of stuff, or talking about generations of the title, the pre-WrestleMania generation, and then the you know, post WrestleMania, the greatest generation of the golden era, then, you know, the new generation era, then the Attitude Era, and et cetera, to show you how the title, the lineage, or whatever has changed, the kind of people who were the champion, that kind of stuff. You know, a usual video package. It was just a picture collage of guys that you might know that were Intercontinental champions in the past, including the Honky Tonk Man. All right, so this match, they set it up excellently. Gunter cut a promo saying that Chad Gable is not the kind of guy who deserves to be in history, while Gunter himself is. And that tonight history will be made. Chad Gable cut a promo, great promo backstage, running down his accomplishments, that he's an Olympian, he's got a master's degree, he's won every version of the tag team championships that you can win. He's going to show his family and the WWE Universe he could do more than be a tag wrestler. He's going to become the Intercontinental Champion, and his desire to win the title is greater than Gunter's desire to keep it. So the main event of the show, Gunter, Gable, 3. Excellent match. Really good match. The ankle lock portion of it was great drama. You truly believed, at least momentarily, that Gable could win. Gable kicked out of a powerbomb, which is Gunter's finisher, even though it's not a great powerbomb. He kicked out of it. Gable landed a superplex from the top rope, which he immediately followed with a flying headbutt. -1 on the headbutt. No headbutts, please. Then he also landed his Chaos Theory, his rolling German suplex, but Gunter kicked out of that. It seems almost like Gable had a chance. You know, the ankle lock again, great drama. People were very, very up for that spot. But Gunter kept working the sleeper. He kept putting him in a sleeper. Gable kept getting out of it. Then eventually, he got a sleeper suplex where he suplexed him on the top of his head from a sleeper position. When Gable got up, he powerbombed him. Then he picked him up with a lariat, and that was the pinfall. Gunter stacked 3 huge moves on top of each other in order to keep Chad Gable down. Made his children cry, and will, on Friday, become the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time. Gunter Gable was tremendous. I got to give Triple H the kudos. He made people care about Chad Gable. It's not just that Chad Gable is a good wrestler. He has touched on Chad Gable from multiple perspectives. He has shown him doing comedy, but also shown him doing serious in-ring stuff. And Triple H, I have to say, he went from being the guy who didn't want to work with Kurt Angle because Kurt Angle was too small, despite Kurt Angle's, pedigree as an Olympic wrestler. Back in the days, Triple H had a really big ego, and he thought, Kurt Angle's too small for me to wrestle. To actually looking at a guy like Chad Gable, who everybody thinks is too small, and deciding, we're going to go with this guy. And you know what? I would not be upset if in a week or so, Gable actually does win the Intercontinental title. The important thing here is that Gunter breaks the record. That was the important thing. Gable looked great. He got, buried with 100 finishers. That's why he managed to lose. But he was a competitor. He was competitive. I could see him maybe winning the title at some point in the future. Just not right now. The timing is off. So on Friday, I believe it's Friday, that's when Gunter will break the record and become the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time. Tremendous. Really good match. Too many commercials for my taste. That's typical of WWE. I really would have preferred this match, even at this length, if it was no commercials. All the commercials really makes it hard for me to focus and to pay attention. Okay, so that's the show from beginning to end. Nothing spectacular occurred on the show. But this show desperately needs a shot in the arm. I know Jey Uso is being brought over. It's supposed to be the shot in the arm, but it's not there yet. They did mention that SmackDown will be getting somebody for Jey Uso. They will be getting trade compensation, as Adam Pearce mentioned. That more likely will be Cody. Cody wasn't on this show. Cody will be back next week. So they're going to slowly but surely unveil that Cody is going to be the guy who's going to go over to SmackDown. And this was probably going to be Cody's choice. So this is going to be interesting how they're going to have Cody move to SmackDown and feud with Roman Reigns and all those guys. But are they going to give him that feud with Drew McIntyre first? Because it seems like it needs to happen. If it's going to happen, it's got to happen on Raw while Cody's on Raw. So they've already started teasing opponents for Cody to wrestle on SmackDown with like Grayson Waller and guys like that. So there are some things there that are moving. But this show needs they need to cook. They need more. This being the Judgment Day show is not working out. I'm not sure the Judgment Day outside of Dominic is really over. Some of the boos are starting to get piped in to me. That's because they all sound the same. So that definitely doesn't sound like legitimate. When all the boos sound the same over and over again, I don't know. And they almost at the same decibel. I don't know about that. But my attacks on Judgment Day is just that they're overexposed. The Bloodline, at least when Bloodline was overexposed, at least they were doing good stuff. The Judgment Day, it doesn't even feel like the stuff that they're doing is good. Sami Zayn is fine. Apparently Kevin Owens was not at this show. Fine. Sami Zayn being one of the stalwarts against Judgment Day is also good. I think we're just basically dragging ass till Survivor Series anyway, when they put together the match where Judgment Day is probably going to end up falling apart. So, not much more to be said. Next week is Rhea Ripley versus Raquel Rodriguez. Okay, I guess so. But is that all? We need more. Like, you need more firepower. You need more interest, more stories. What's next for this person or that person? You know, it would have been nice if they just gave Jey Uso a story from the first, from the beginning. Instead of just saying, you got enemies back there. Instead of just one person specifically getting in his face and saying, you're by yourself now, and kicking his ass or trying to kick his ass. That would have been perfect. It would have been Drew McIntyre. But Drew's going to be the good guy and he's going to wait for Jey to do something wrong first. And then he's going to kick his shit in. Then he's going to kick Cody's shit in too. And I'm looking forward to that. Because this show needs something. It's just... It's on low. They're cooking on low. They need to turn the heat up. And I know that the Triple H idea is to just drown the show in matches. But no. That's not going to work for me, brother. Not going to work for me, brother. Also, no Becky Lynch on this show. Very interesting. All right. What do you guys think? Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.